Gulliver's Travel by Jonathan Swift. Gulliver's Travels recounts the story of Lemuel Gulliver, a practical-minded Englishman trained as a surgeon who takes to the seas when his business fails. In a deadpan first-person narrative that rarely shows any signs of self-reflection or deep emotional response, Gulliver narrates the adventures that befall him on these travels. Gulliver's adventure in Lilliput begins when he wakes after his shipwreck to find himself bound by innumerable tiny threads and addressed by tiny captors who are in awe of him but fiercely protective of their kingdom. They are not afraid to use violence against Gulliver, though their arrows are little more than pinpricks. But overall, they are hospitable, risking famine in their land by feeding Gulliver, who consumes more food than 1,000 Lilliputians combined could. Gulliver is taken into the capital city via a vast wagon the Lilliputians have specially built. He is presented to the Emperor, who is entertained by Gulliver just as Gulliver is flattered by the attention of royalty. Eventually Gulliver becomes a national resource, used by the army in its war against the people of Blefuscu, whom the Lilliputians hate for doctrinal differences concerning the proper way to crack eggs. But things change when Gulliver is off treason for putting out a fire in the royal palace with his urine and is condemned to be shot in the eyes and starved to death. Gulliver escapes to Blefuscu, where he is able to repair a boat he finds and sets sail for England. After staying in England with his wife and family for 2 months, Gulliver undertakes his next sea voyage, which takes him to a land of giants called Brobdingnag. Here, a field worker discovers him. The farmer initially treats him as little more than an animal, keeping him for amusement. The farmer eventually sells Gulliver to the queen, who makes him a courtly diversion and is entertained by his musical talents. Social life is easy for Gulliver after his discovery by the court, but not particularly enjoyable. Gulliver is often repulsed by the physicality of the Brobdingnagians, whose ordinary flaws are many times magnified by their huge size. Thus, when a couple of courtly ladies let him play on their naked bodies, he is not attracted to them, but rather disgusted by their enormous skin pores and the sound of their torrential urination. He is generally startled by the ignorance of the people here. Even the king knows nothing about politics. More unsettling findings in Brobdingnag come in the form of various animals in the realm that endanger his life. Even Brobdingnagian insects leave slimy trails on his foods that make eating difficult. On a trip to the frontier accompanying the royal couple, Gulliver leaves Brobdingnag when his cage is plucked up by an eagle and dropped into a sea. Next, Gulliver sets sail again and after an attack by pirates ends up in Laputa, where a floating island inhabited by the Fission Ants academics oppresses the land below called Balnibarbi. The scientific research undertaken in Laputa and in Balnibarbi seems totally inane and impractical, and its residents too wholly out of touch with reality. Taking a short side trip to Glabdabdrib, Gulliver is able to witness the conjuring up of figures from history, such as Julius Caesar and other military leaders whom he finds much less impressive than in books. After visiting the Lagnagians and the Struldbrags, the latter of which are senile immortals who prove that age does not bring wisdom, he is able to sail to Japan and from there back to England. Finally, on his fourth journey, Gulliver sets out as captain of a ship, but after the mutiny of his crew and a long confinement in his cabin, he arrives in an unknown land. This land is populated by Hawaiians, rational thinking horses who rule, and by Yahoos, brutish human-like creatures who serve the Hawaiians. Gulliver sets about learning their language, and when he can speak, he narrates his voyages to them and explains the constitution of England. He is treated with great courtesy and kindness by the horses, and is enlightened by his many conversations with them and by his exposure to their noble culture. He wants to stay with the Hawaiians, but his bared body reveals to the horses that he is very much like a Yahoo and he is banished. Gulliver is grief-stricken but agrees to leave. He fashions a canoe and makes his way to a nearby island where he is picked up by a Portuguese ship captain who treats him well, though Gulliver cannot help now seeing the all humans as shamefully Yahoo-like. Gulliver then concludes his narrative with a claim that the lands he has visited belong by the rights to England as her colonies, even though he questions the whole idea of colonialism. After hearing the story Gulliver's Travels by Jonathan Swift, in what ways does Gulliver's final journey affect his view of himself and others? In what ways does Gulliver's final journey affect his view of himself and others? And what satirical elements does Jonathan Swift use to criticize society and politics? Which do you find most relevant today? What satirical elements does Jonathan Swift use to criticize society and politics? Which do you find most relevant today?